Have you ever had someone ask you a question that didn't sit right? You couldn't quite put your finger on it, but something in their tone, their smile, or the way they leaned in felt off. Maybe you had just shared some good news, a new hobby, a trip you've been planning, maybe even a little success story that made you proud. And suddenly, instead of a warm congratulations, you get a strange question like, "Well, must be nice, huh?" If that's ever happened to you, you're not alone. A lot of us, especially as we get older, begin to recognize the subtle signs of jealousy in the people around us. It's not always loud or obvious. In fact, it's often whispered through little comments or questions that seem polite on the surface, but are really carrying something else underneath. Jealousy is a tricky thing. It doesn't always show up with harsh words or slammed doors. Sometimes it dresses itself up as concern, curiosity, or even support. But if you listen closely, and I mean really listen, you'll hear it. And more importantly, you'll feel it. That's what we're talking about today. 7 questions people often ask when they're feeling jealous of you. They might not even realize it themselves, but if you know what to look for, you'll stop taking these comments personally and start protecting your peace. Let's start with one of the most common and most subtle questions. Do you really think you can keep that up? Now, this might come right after you've shared something you're excited about. Maybe you've started walking every morning, or you've taken up painting, or you've finally organized your finances and feel proud of where you're headed. And then, boom, that question drops. It's usually said with a half smile, maybe even a laugh, like they're teasing. But it plants a seed, doubt. That's what jealousy does. It can't celebrate your momentum, so it tries to stop it by shaking your confidence. But let me tell you something. You've lived too much life to let someone else's insecurity trip you up. Whether you've made changes to your health, your attitude, or even just your daily routine, you don't owe anyone proof. You don't need to explain how long you'll keep it up. You just need to keep showing up. The only person you're in competition with is the version of you from yesterday. If you're growing, even slowly, you're winning. You don't have to defend that to anyone. Especially not someone who's secretly wishing you'd fall back into old habits just so they'd feel better about standing still. Let's move to the next one, because it's a big one, and it sounds harmless at first. What made you think you could do that? Now, you might hear this if you've taken a leap, big or small. Maybe you decided to sell something you made. Maybe you finally stood up for yourself in a family conversation. Maybe you said, "You know what? I'm going to take better care of myself." And someone saw that spark in you and didn't like what it reflected in them. This question pretends to be curious, but often it's laced with disbelief, and sometimes even a little mockery. What made you think you could do that? Well, how about this? Years of wisdom, decades of experiences, lessons learned the hard way, and the quiet voice inside you that said, "It's my time now." You see, when someone's jealous, they don't want to admit it. So instead of saying, "I wish I could do that," they challenge whether you should. But here's the truth. You can start something new at any age. You can step into your power in your 60s, 70s, or beyond. There's no deadline for becoming who you want to be. So when someone questions your ability, don't respond with anger. Just smile. Let your actions be the answer. Let your progress speak louder than their doubt. Now, here comes another one, and this one is sneaky. Isn't that a little much? Have you ever felt judged for being too enthusiastic? Too active? Too extra, as the younger folks say? Maybe you like to dress up a little more than usual. Maybe you post pictures on Facebook of your garden, your travels, or your wins, and someone comments, "Wow, you're really going all out, huh?" Translation: tone it down. You're making me uncomfortable. That discomfort, it's not about you. It's about them. Jealousy feels threatened when you show up boldly, when you live fully, when you don't hide. And instead of facing that discomfort, some people try to make you feel guilty for shining. But here's the truth. You are not too much. You're just more than what they're used to. And if you've spent years, maybe decades, downplaying yourself to keep others comfortable, maybe it's time to stop. You've earned every bit of joy, expression, and confidence you carry. Don't shrink to fit a version of you they remember. Let them adjust to who you are now. You know, sometimes we outgrow people. That doesn't mean we stop caring for them, but it does mean we stop letting their discomfort dictate our joy. So if anyone ever makes you feel like you're doing too much, just remember, the ones who love you will cheer for you, and the ones who don't, they'll adjust or fall away. All right, take a moment. Breathe that in. There's something powerful about recognizing these little digs for what they are. Not truths, not reflections of your worth, but signs that you're growing in ways others may not be ready to accept. And that's okay. What matters is that you're ready. You've got time, you've got wisdom, and you've got every right to live these years boldly, brightly, and unapologetically. Let's keep going. Now, here's another one that'll sound familiar, especially if you've ever done something a little out of the ordinary and someone just couldn't help themselves. Who do you think you are? Now, they might not always say it that bluntly. Sometimes it's wrapped in a chuckle or masked as a joke. Look at you, acting fancy. Or, oh, someone's feeling important today. But make no mistake, the question is there, lurking underneath. Who do you think you are to rise above where you used to be? This one stings, doesn't it? Especially when it comes from someone who's known you a long time. Maybe a family member, an old friend, or even someone from your church or community group. People who remember the you from years ago and have a hard time accepting the version of you who's grown, who's changed, and who dares to want more. But here's the thing. Who do you think you are? You're someone who's lived, who's worked, who's raised kids, maybe buried loved ones, maybe lost and found yourself more than once. You've earned your voice. You've earned your confidence. And if someone can't see that, it says more about where they are than where you're headed. Don't let that question take root. Don't start second-guessing yourself just because someone else is stuck in the past. You're allowed to grow out of the box they kept you in. And you don't need anyone's permission to become the kind of person you always wanted to be. When you start changing, for the better, it makes people uncomfortable. Especially if they've been stuck in the same patterns for years. You showing up differently makes them question their own choices. That's not your fault. And it's certainly not your burden. So the next time someone throws that question at you, in words or tone, just smile. Because deep down they already know who you are. They just didn't expect you to remember it too. Now here's another one, and this one's subtle, sneaky even, but it cuts deep if you're not prepared. Isn't it a little late for that? Whew. That one can hit hard, especially when it comes to trying something new. Maybe you're learning how to use a new phone. Maybe you're dating again after a long time. Maybe you started writing, or picked up an instrument, or joined a group fitness class. And then someone says it, isn't it a little late for that? No, it's not. Not even close. See, some people are uncomfortable with the idea that life doesn't stop evolving at 60, or 70, or even 90. They bought into the idea that once you hit a certain age, your time for discovery is over. But you know better. You know that curiosity, growth, joy, these things don't expire. There's no age limit on learning, loving, or reinventing yourself. That's something people with closed minds won't understand. But you don't need them to. You just need to keep going. I once met a woman at 73 who started selling homemade jam at a local farmer's market. She said she just wanted to feel useful again. You know what happened? Her jam became so popular that 2 local stores asked to carry it. Someone said to her, "Aren't you too old to be starting a business?" She looked at them, smiled, and said, "I'm too alive not to." Now that's the spirit. Let's keep going because this next one might catch you off guard. Why are you trying so hard? Sounds innocent, doesn't it? But that question often comes with a little side eye, a little judgment. Maybe you've decided to clean up your diet, dress a little sharper, or walk with your head held a bit higher. And someone, usually someone who hasn't changed in years, hits you with that question. Why are you trying so hard? The truth? You're trying because you finally believe you're worth the effort. You're trying because you've got life left to live and you don't want to coast through the rest of it on autopilot. You're trying because, for once, you're putting yourself first, and there's nothing selfish about that. People who aren't trying, who gave up a long time ago, can feel threatened by your effort. Your energy reminds them of everything they stopped caring about. And instead of being inspired, they get defensive. So they try to pull you back down to their level, not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear that it might be too late for them. Fear that they'll never find the spark again. But here's the beautiful part. Your trying might just light something in them even if they don't admit it. So don't stop. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Keep going. You're not doing too much. You're doing exactly what your soul has been asking you to do for years. And finally, let's talk about this one. Do you even know what you're doing? It might come from someone younger than you, someone who thinks they have it all figured out. Or it might come from a peer who's always seen you as just one thing, just a mom, just a retiree, just a quiet person who kept to themselves. And suddenly, you're stepping out, trying something different, sharing your voice. And they hit you with, "Do you even know what you're doing?" Here's the honest answer. Maybe you don't. But so what? Most people don't know exactly what they're doing when they start something new. They figure it out as they go. They make mistakes. They adjust. They learn. That's how life works. At any age. Nobody has it all mapped out. What matters is that you're doing it. You're showing up. You're trying. You're learning. That's more than most people can say. Don't let the fear of not knowing keep you frozen. Especially not because someone else is uncomfortable with your courage. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to keep asking better questions and trusting that every step you take is moving you closer to the life you want to live. Let's pause here for a moment. You've heard a lot today. And if any of these questions have ever come your way, I want you to know something. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's often because there's something right with you. Something that's waking up, rising up, shining through. And some people just aren't ready to see it. But you are. You're ready. And you're strong enough to keep going. Let's talk about the last one, and it might be the hardest to hear. Not because it's the harshest, but because it comes from people you might care about. Why are you acting different? Now, on the surface, this might sound like someone just noticing a change. But the tone, the tone, that's what gives it away. It's not curiosity. It's criticism dressed up as concern. You see, when you start changing, for the better, it disrupts the comfort zone other people had you in. Maybe you used to always say yes, even when you didn't want to. Maybe you used to put everyone else's needs ahead of your own. Maybe you kept quiet just to keep the peace. But now you're saying no when it matters. Now you're taking time for yourself. Now you're choosing peace over pleasing. And suddenly they say you're acting different. Here's the truth. You are different. And that's something to be proud of. Growth doesn't come easy. It takes courage to break out of patterns that no longer serve you. It takes strength to stop apologizing for wanting something more. And it takes wisdom, the kind that only life experience gives, to realize that just because something has always been a certain way doesn't mean it should stay that way. Sometimes people say, "You've changed," like it's a bad thing. But you and I both know that's the point. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to evolve, learn, get stronger, get wiser. That's not something to hide. That's something to celebrate. If someone doesn't like that you've changed, it might be because they haven't. That's their path, not yours. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You don't need to justify becoming a fuller version of yourself. And if your light makes others squint, don't dim it. Let them adjust. Let me tell you something important. The questions we've talked about today, every single one of them, comes from the same place. Not from you doing something wrong, but from you doing something right. You're shining. You're moving. You're waking up to your worth. And that can be uncomfortable for people who are still living small, who are afraid to change, or who hoped you'd always stay exactly as you were. But you didn't, and that's a beautiful thing. There's something special about reaching this stage of life. You start realizing that time is too precious to waste on shallow opinions, or small talk, or silent resentments. You start valuing peace more than approval. You start noticing which relationships uplift you and which ones quietly drain you. And most of all, you start remembering, maybe for the first time in a long time, that your life is yours. You don't have to carry anyone's jealousy, anyone's fear, anyone's expectations. You've carried enough already. Now it's your turn to walk lighter. So the next time someone asks a question like, "Who do you think you are?" Isn't it too late for that? Why are you acting different? Take a breath. Look them in the eye. And remember, these questions don't define you. They reveal what's going on inside them, not what's wrong with you. You are not too much. You are not too late. You are not selfish for choosing joy. You are someone who's still growing, still rising, still becoming. That's something worth being proud of. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep taking care of your spirit. Keep protecting your peace. Keep setting boundaries and raising your standards. And most of all, keep believing in the version of you that you're becoming. Because it's never too late to live in full color. And don't forget, the people who really love you won't be threatened by your growth. They'll cheer you on. They'll rise with you. And if they don't, that's okay too. Let them go with grace. Not everyone is meant to walk with you to the next chapter. Before we wrap up, I want to say this. If any of these questions hit close to home today, I hope you heard this loud and clear. You're not imagining it. You're not being sensitive. And you're certainly not alone. The more you grow, the more you'll trigger people who aren't ready to. That's not your fault. And it's not your problem to fix. You just keep going. Quietly, boldly, joyfully. And if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you. For all the ways you've changed. For all the things you've let go. For all the strength it takes to keep choosing yourself. You've earned every good thing coming your way. So let them whisper. Let them wonder. Let them ask their questions. You've got nothing to prove. Your peace is louder than their noise. Thanks for spending this time with me. If this message spoke to you, if you felt seen or encouraged or just reminded of your own strength, go ahead and tap that like button, leave a comment below, and make sure to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. This channel is here for you, for the journey, for the growth, for the joy of living fully at any age. Here's to living your truth, walking tall, and shining without apology. You've still got so much life ahead, and I can't wait to see what you do with it. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next video.